it's a regulatory house built on fundamentally very sandy foundations. The rules are written like a 5-year-old has penned them. What do we do? How do we enforce those? Where are your terms and conditions, FI? You're always going to have these grey areas within which you will get a chap like Max Verstappen operating.
Isaac is not doing it in F2 right now.
They rate him that highly that I think they would trust him to get in that car. You know, he did very solid FP1 performances. That's a start.
Did he, Baxty?
No,
Did he? I thought he was rubbish.
They didn't like him.
He was rubbish.
In the FP, in the pre-practice sessions, I don't think they liked him.
Hello, welcome once again to another episode of the Shakedown podcast. With me as always, my brethren, my friends, my brothers, my right honourable colleagues, the one that they call Sir Baxter and the one that they call Shazino, aka the A-side. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you are doing because there is lots of F1 to talk about and many F1 threads at which we need to pull. Baxter, let me come to you first. Who done it? Who was to blame? Lando or Maximilian Verstappen?
I think our viewers will be very unsurprised to hear me say Max.
Oof. How and why? Boo. Boo that man.
I fully understand why Lando was given the penalty. I've had some time to digest it since I spoke about it somewhere else. And he passed him off the track. So it's a penalty. But you got to understand the reason why he passed him off the track. He passed him off the track because Max put him there. And therefore, in my view, they both should have been given a 5-second penalty, one for forcing another driver off the track and another for passing around the outside. Just because Max forced him off and Lando committed a more grave error, it doesn't absolve Max of blame. And then you get into the whole techiness of who's overtaking, who's not overtaking. Yeah, simple fact is Max is the one being overtaken in some respect, and he has to keep his car on the track. He didn't do that. He just put all four wheels off and took Lando with him for the second time in the Grand Prix. Now, okay, turn 1, that's lap 1, you kind of understand it. But in this particular instance, turn 12, lap 51, 52, whichever one it was, that was, for me, that was more on Max than it was on Lando. Lando did what he did because he was forced to do so. And what was so frustrating about it was that Max had been defending so unbelievably beautifully up until that point. I praised the guy on social media. I very rarely do that because I couldn't believe what I was watching. I just thought, this is the Max Verstappen I thought was coming. And then he had to go and revert to type.
Go on then, mate. There's a lot to unpack in there. Let's get techie for a second, Baxty. Isn't there such a thing as insider line privilege? I was always told that when I was racing, if I could get up the inside, then I could, the overcrowd, that was by dint of my inside line privilege. I can do what I want, mate. Michael Schumacher used to do it back in the day. Like, I think we're talking about, I think what the FIA talk about in their rules and regs sporting code of conduct is the extent of the overcrowd. And plus, Baxter, if I see that and raise you this, surely the only thing stronger than inside line privilege in today's F1 as far as the rules and regs are concerned is getting your nose to the apex first. Are we missing a trick here, Baxter?
So, yeah, I've seen the analysis and look, Max was at the apex first, by a matter of millimeters.
Close.
But what he did was that he basically just took a wider line, went himself off the track. If he'd kept himself on the track and then Lando does what he does, we don't have this discussion because it's like, no, okay, he got forced wide, but that's hard racing, and he decided to take advantage of it. Instead, Max took himself off the track, a la Brazil 21, the only difference being Lewis didn't do the cheeky round the outside pass, probably because maybe Lewis knew what would happen if he did that. So, yes, okay, look, Lando and McLaren are at fault because McLaren should have told him to give the place back rather than take the penalty. But I just feel if you're forcing somebody off the track and you yourself are going off, it's a 50-50 in my view. And I think both of them should have had a penalty.
Gets techie this, Shez. Chime in, sir, because I'm not sure on which side of this fence I sit. Half of me wants to say, the racer, the Michael Schumacher in me wants to say, listen, this is racing, and Max is acutely aware, not necessarily of the letter of the law, but of the precedent in F1, and that's got to count for something, right, Shez? How did you see the incident between Max and Lando first and foremost?
In period, I wasn't particularly surprised. It was coming, and you kind of when you have Max defending against a car that is sort of close enough to his own car's performance, he's not going to let you pass, whether it's inside, outside, over the top, underneath. It doesn't really matter. He's just not going to let you get past one way or the other. And his um, weapon of choice is to go for the apex as quickly as possible, come what may. Whether that means letting off the brake and rolling it into the corner a bit quicker than he should, or crowding the other guy off the apex so that they don't get there first. One way or the other. That's what it's always. He always does the same thing, and it just so happens that at the moment there's a set of rules, um, guidelines that we're not even supposed to actually really know about, that define what you are and aren't allowed to do, and they essentially say what Max does is fine. So, if that's what's fine, then can you blame him for doing that? I don't really think you can. Um, and there's a line at the bottom of that of Article 2 of that little guideline. It says that the defending car can only do what they've said, i.e., get to the apex first, and then they can have the exit of the corner however they want it, as long as they stay on track, right? But that's not to do with a penalty. That's just to do with, okay, well, do I have to give up the corner? Well, I mean, did he have to give up the corner when Lando's gone round the outside of him? Probably not. And that's the argument that the stewards ultimately took, wasn't it? That they gave Lando a 5-second penalty rather than a 10-second penalty because Max was off the track as per their sporting guidelines for Article 2 of that ridiculous guideline. My overall thing about all of this is that there shouldn't be a guideline. I think it's nonsense. And if you have a permanent steward there that has built up a library of experience about how these are handled and what should be expected in a particular circumstance, then it can be arbitrated properly. And the second is that if you had a proper rumble strip or a proper gravel strip like they do in Austria on the outside of that corner, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Fairs, Shez. It's so techie, this. I listen, part of me wants to say the FIA are just nonsense, right? Always nonsense, always. But it's kind of true to a certain extent. It's a regulatory house built on fundamentally very sandy foundations. The rules are written like a 5-year-old has penned them. What do we do? How do we enforce those? Where are your terms and conditions, FI? You're always going to have these grey areas within which you will get a chap like Max Verstappen operating. Don't hate the player, Shez. Hate the game. And let me say this to you as well, mate. I just think Lando, I was frustrated with Lando, bro. And I don't think like this is the week to riff on Lando, but I was frustrated because 98% of the time, but for the bookend, the start and the finish of that race, I think he was god tier. Even the way he was setting up the move, he was kind of like, do you know what I mean? It felt like Lando was becoming. You don't think so, Baxty?
No, I mean, look, turn one was clumsy because he left. There are certain drivers, if you leave an inch, they'll take a mile. And Max Verstappen is one of those. Lando left a gap. Max did if you no longer go for a gap thing, he did it. And okay, he forced him off. And the big beneficiary of it was Charles Leclerc. But, it was, that was poor. And then he ended up losing out to not just Max, but to Carlos Sainz as well. So really compromised him there. And then he didn't really have much pace in the first stint, really. I mean, compared to the other three, he was a mile off. And then basically it took the hard tyres to get that McLaren going. Whatever they've done to that McLaren, be it the changes to the rear wing or the upgrades that they bought not quite working because they've only had one practice session to optimize them and understand them before going into sprints and everything else. I just think, it wasn't a particularly great weekend from Lando. I think other than the quali on Saturday, that pole lap was outstandingly good. But the race, nah. People are trying to blame Lando for saying, oh, he had so many opportunities to run it up the outside or the inside of Max. No, Max defended beautifully. Like, you got to give credit to the other guy. But, I just thought the most of the execution of that race was not particularly great from him. I'll be honest.
I thought he was half decent. Okay, let me give you. I agree with you on the start and the finish. Those two bloody important parts of the race, by the way, the very end. But I thought in the way that he was dealing with Max, like there was an opportunity there to snatch one at the inside, and do you know what I mean? Like flat spot your tyres, and I just thought Lando. Okay, let me put it this way. I thought he was much improved as versus Austria. Like I felt like he'd come a long way. He was driving in a way that was much more mature, and I'm here for that. I love a cheeky riff and a cheeky Lando Norris disparage, but I've got to give him credit for that, particularly on the back of Helmut Marko calling into question his mental fortitude or lack thereof. But that gives rise to the frustration, and because it was so very there. Like the bloody F1 community is rooting for this chap, because he's the only one who can keep it close over the next bloody 5 races. Do you know what I mean? Keep the championship close. And then again, he goes and does the Lando Norris thing and sees his defeat from the jaws of victory. Shez, let me ask the question, because this is another segment of the argument oft discussed since. Did McLaren drop the ball in not telling Lando to cede the place immediately and then have another go at him?
No, I'm with Baxter on this. He wasn't setting up a move properly. Like I often feel like Lando stumbles into an overtaking situation and runs out of ideas about how he's going to get past the person in front. Well, by person I mean Max. It happened in Austria. It happened again here. It's like Max has already got in his head. And he's always sort of second guessing himself about how a move is going to come off. And the reason that then feeds into McLaren's choice not to get him to cede position was that actually I think the outcome would have been the same. He had a better chance of making up the 5 seconds than he did of ceding position and then winning it back again. So I think the outcome ultimately was the same. I mean, I think I've heard somebody give the argument that if he'd given back the position strategically, he might have been able to get the position back again. But I didn't see it. That like the 3 or 4 attempts that he had, Max was defending so well and so aggressively that I don't think he was going to find a way past. And I think his best move at that point was to just soak up the penalty and try and get 5 seconds on him.
I don't disagree. I think that was the chance most likely, right? If he's going to try and roll his dice and throw a 6, then I think argue with the FIA as opposed to try and taking him long enough. How many laps did it take for him to get his nose in front of Max Verstappen? Do you know what I mean? And towards the end of the race, the time was going to kick in.
He was hesitant about it, wasn't it? That cheeky double move in the braking zone into turn 1 after he overtook him, that was indecision. Didn't you think? You know what I'm talking about? You know which move
I think it was a desperate. He probably saw Max coming a bit later than he probably expected.
Do you think that's what it was?
And so he made a move. Now, I don't think it was penalty worthy. It's probably a slap on the wrist, driving standards flags. But yeah, it's.
But it was more that why did he do that? I mean, you're saying it's because you think he saw Max late. I'm thinking he was sitting there arguing with the pit wall about whether or not he should give that position back or not, and he made a last minute decision not to.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. That's the way I interpreted it.
Well, McLaren didn't. The biggest problem is McLaren didn't think he should have had a penalty. I mean, Andrea Stella was furious after the race. Described it as a beautiful motor. I mean, you'd expect him to support his driver, obviously, but I just thought, come on, like do your analysis properly and just do the right thing. And I think the indecision again of McLaren, they should have just said, look, you might take a penalty, go, just bomb it and get 5 seconds ahead. No, he may have failed.
I think it wasn't. I think indecision is the pipe dream that we're being sold. It was an indecision. They knew from watching the bloody Herculean effort from Lando Norris to get to where he nearly got to. I think it doesn't take do you know what I mean? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to realise that 9 times out of 10, Maximilian Verstappen was going to finish in front of Lando Norris. Like if past was prologue, do you know what I mean? Like what was Lando going to do all of a sudden, having been in the dirty air of Max Verstappen that he hadn't done over the course of the last 10 laps? I thought it was the impossible dream, Baxty. But it is techie. To the question though, I don't know. They had to just argue with the FIA before you argue with a charging, angry Maximilian Verstappen. You've got more chance of winning. It is my humble opinion. But can we talk to Max Verstappen for a second, Baxter? I'll try him to you. You said that you thought Max was driving brilliantly defensively. What does that look like, chap? What was Max Verstappen doing that made that drive so good?
It's the placement of the car into every corner, into every apex. He seemed to know where Lando was going to go before Lando did. It was Alonso-esque. It was absolutely Alonso-esque. He just absolutely nailed it. He positioned his car the right way. If Lando was thinking, so Shez said that I characterized Lando didn't set up the move very well. He wasn't allowed to by Max. That's the point I was trying to make. Like, Max wasn't allowing him to make that move as well as he would have wanted to. And, Max has learned through battle. I mean, obviously, he famously got dummied by Lewis into turn 1 in Brazil in 2021. So Max has learned from that. And he's like, okay, I'm going to make sure you don't dummy me at any point. And Max knows his way around Kota. He's always been very quick there. So, yeah, I mean, Max did exactly what he needed to do for the championship this weekend. He won the sprint race, which was amazing. His pole lap was beautiful. Obviously, Lewis probably would have had pole had Lewis not encountered Franco, but I'm sure we'll talk about Mercedes another day. But he did everything he needed to. He won the race in the right way. And then, okay, the Ferraris had too much pace in the main Grand Prix, but I'm saying the way I describe it, he's counter-punching his way to the title. Yeah, and he's absorbing the pressure, and he just absolutely nailed everything that he needed to do. So much so that I actually think the Drivers' Championship is dead, is gone. Contest over.
Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock. I think it's been done a while ago. Notwithstanding one Will Buxton telling us that it's not that Lando can win, it's that he will win. Talking in those type of absolute term settings, of course, his crystal ball has proven to be much more murky than the rest of us. Let me chime in on Max Verstappen very quickly, Batsty, because I think I read this article that talked about, outlined brilliantly Ben Anderson at the race, exactly what Max Verstappen's doing, that it's one thing to look at that dude from a distance and see what he's doing, but when you fall foul of it, when you are a victim of it, the aggression and the ruthlessness, in conjunction of course with the foresight and the awareness and the adaptability in real time, there is no switchback as an example to be pulled on one Max Verstappen. He will see it coming and he will park up on the apex, and then of course that means that you've got to go up the inside, but the dude drives on the white line of the inside of every single turn. Like it's how do you, Shez, like what's the solve to overtake this chap? Like what's the panacea? How Charles, your boy Charles does it quite well, but what's he doing that none of the other drivers on the grid can do?
I don't know, and I've had to go back and look at some of the videos of how Max has been passed. But I titled our last video on our channel "Unraceable," and I've done that before this season as well, because it's not because I think that Max is dirty. I just think that he's formed like an impenetrable wall. Like he has an answer to every move that an attacker has against him. And as you say, if you try and go around the outside, he'll get to the apex first and push you off. If you try and go down the inside, he'll get to the apex first and you'll end up overshooting. If you try the switchback, he'll, like you said, he'll sit on the apex and slow you down. That there is, like, he's got an answer to all of the moves, and the only way that I've seen that you can do it is that you set the move up a corner or two beforehand.
Lewis.
Not just Lewis. Charles Silverstone 2019 did exactly the same thing into the Vale chicane. He caught him into the left-hander, and in the right-hander, he just muscled him out of the way at the apex and sent him wide. But Lando, I think, had that opportunity. What he was maximizing was his end of straight speed to be able to be, right behind him going into turn 12. Where actually what he needed to do was be like alongside him and past him on the straight, because he'd already done all the hard
100%,
work going into turn
1000%.
11.
Yeah,
Look,
that
what, like if you're setting yourself up, that's what Lando needed to be doing. And that's why I think he's not ready for this.
1000%. I couldn't agree more. But there are other things, right? Even if as an example, like I cited on my stream immediately after the race. Let's say you don't have it in your toolbox to overtake a Max Verstappen, then surely leverage a cheeky Sebastian Vettel and lights the flag victory every time. He won bloody 4 championships like that, right? And I genuinely, I don't think Sebastian Vettel's racecraft, as far as working his way through the carbon fibre zone, if he qualified on like 6th, he was always going to struggle getting to the front, right? Because that wasn't his bag, and therefore he knew that he needed to be an absolute qualifying demon, and Sebastian Vettel was that. And then he would see you that and raise you this. He wouldn't make mistakes off the line. Like each and every single time Seb put it on pole, you could go away and come back like 2 hours later, know pretty much that he was going to do as his idol and mentor used to, 2000 to 2004 settings, and lights the flag victory every single time. So why doesn't Lando put all of his eggs in that? But he doesn't need to overtake Max Verstappen when you have the best car. Put it on pole and go away, chap. Watch all of the 2000 to 2004, or 2010 to 2013 Sebastian Vettel races, and therein lies your blueprint. But he won't do it, will he, Max D? Won't do it. Lando's winning, some say, isn't for everyone.
I mean, yeah, he's won some races this year. That's a step up for him. If you think, I think he said, "Oh, 2024 is going to be a success." No, look, you're fighting for the championship here, and you're not going to succeed in doing that. But if you want to take some positives, you've actually won races this year, and you've won races in different circumstances. Getting lucky with a safety car in Miami, bad start, but keeping cool under pressure in Zandvoort, and then dominating Singapore. So, okay, look, yeah, it's not going to be a championship winning season on the driver's side, possibly the constructors, who knows. 3-way fight for the title there, that'll be interesting. But yeah, no, I just think maybe next year he'll be stronger, but then Oscar Piastri will also be stronger. Now, if we talk about somebody who may have set the move up better, Oscar's probably somebody. I mean, look at the move he pulled on Charles Leclerc in Baku.
Yeah, but you gotta. But the issue is though with that back, so you got to be quick enough to find yourself in the position, and he was nowhere. Yeah. I don't even know if we can. Can we even? I don't know. Is this even the forum to discuss Oscar Piastri? Can he afford the entry fee, chaps, on the back of the weekend that he just had? I'm not sure, mate. It was really, really bad. Shez, let me come to you and talk about your old mate, Charles Leclerc. Do you feel bad for the chap that on this weekend, that was an incredible weekend from the Monegasque, the man some call modern day journalese? He was brilliant, but nobody's talking about him. Shez, talk to me about Charles very quickly in 60 seconds or less. What did he do so well at this Grand Prix?
First, I say sum equals n equals 1, Cameron. But also, I probably feel about as bad for him as he feels bad about it himself. I'm sure he doesn't really care at all, having knocked it out of the park on Sunday. I think you tweeted this today, didn't you, about Ferrari's upgrades? I'm pretty sure there's a front wing in there as well that they're not talking about, because Fred Vasseur was definitely talking about some aero elasticity, which still drives me up the wall. That's the most illegal thing they're doing this year, and like everyone's just like, oh, but they passed the load test, so it's okay. But yeah, I mean, I think Charles didn't put a foot wrong once it came to the actual race. Probably could have done better in qualifying, which is unlike him. Weird for me to be saying that, but actually it shows again the progress of Charles Leclerc this season. Somebody characterized this as Charles as Max Verstappen's 2020 season. This is what Charles Leclerc is having this year. And we talked about this last week in an unaired session, that the number of mistakes, actually, if you had to count them all down, Charles probably had one really bad race this season, and that's fewer than any of the other title protagonists have had this year. So I think overall this is coming together nicely. If he nicks second by the end of it, that would be some going.
Mate, I'll just say this on shot. I would pay a lot of money to see Carlos Sainz beat that chap. Not,
I know you would.
mate. And I feel like it was there for him this weekend, you know. Just got a little bit unlucky into turn one. Different place, different time, and that would have been Carlos Sainz's race to win. That's not me saying that Charles wasn't quicker than Carlos Sainz pretty much all weekend apart from qualifying, but I don't know. If there is such a thing as the racing gods, then on the back of the way that Scuderia have treated one Carlos Sainz Jr., I think he's due. He's due for karmic justice to smile down upon him, I think. Chaps, as we round third base, let's talk about the rookie era. Because Colapinto is here, Liam Lawson is here, and they're putting their teammates respectively under Manus. Even Checo Perez is looking around him, feeling a bit got to be feeling nervous, hasn't he, going into the Mexican Grand Prix, knowing all the while that there's another Latin American hero who just coincidentally looks ever so slightly like Ayrton Senna. What do you make, Baxter, of Lawson and Colapinto coming in and setting the F1 world ablaze?
They've been brilliant, haven't they? They've been absolutely brilliant. I think Colapinto is definitely more of a surprise because he was having an okay F2 season. I think he got a sprint race win or something, but he's come in and just absolutely nailed it and put Alex Albon completely under manners, which I think is the more shocking thing. Albon is the established driver. He's very high on a lot of people's radars, and now all of a sudden his reputation is now dropping like a stone, and everyone's talking about Colapinto, so much so that I think he's now one of the favourites to get the Sauber seat next year should Williams strike a deal with Sauber. And if Albon is under pressure next year, and Colapinto isn't at Sauber and he's a reserve driver for Williams, James Vowles can go, well, we know the other guy can deliver because we saw it over 10 races. Lawson, bit more of a proven quantity, but what a drive. What a drive. One stopper, making it work, beating Tsunoda. When Yuki's been pressing the case for a Red Bull drive all season, and I think has been unfairly excluded from that discussion up until this weekend when Lawson put his hand up and said, well, if you're going to sack Checo Perez, I should be the first port of call. And I think he is based off of that, just one race alone. And he was outstanding. And look at his time in Q1. He was rapid, absolutely rapid. So interesting times ahead at Red Bull. I'll quickly get this one in. I think if Red Bull finish third in the Constructors' Championship, which I think is a very real possibility, Checo is going to be blamed and will be sacked, I think, because of it.
I mean, no kidding, Baxter. Like, do you know what I mean? Of course, I don't know how he's still in that seat now. I was at the 23rd of the 10th, 202. Like, why is he still there, Checo Perez? Well, we know why, because money's a thing, right? And he brings in anywhere between 20 and 30 million US dollars per year. Here's what I think, Shes. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think they will promote. Timing is the only thing that I'm unsure of here. I think that they will promote Liam Lawson to the seat alongside Max Verstappen, and they will sign Colapinto, who, as at the time of writing, doesn't have a contract for 2025, to the seat alongside one Yuki Tsunoda. Shez, what do you reckon, mate? Yeah, buying or selling, chap?
Yeah, maybe it sounds neat, but would you give up a potential Williams seat? Because the way he's sort of shown Albon up in the last 2 or 3 races kind of makes me worry about Alex next season a little bit. You
think James Vowles will get rid of Alex Albon and put in their Colapinto? That's bold, mate.
But I mean, you know that Franco is their development driver. He's from their driver academy. Cameron, I think there are a lot of drivers on the grid right now that will be looking over their shoulder at the people that are coming out of F2 right now, because this field is unbelievable. Like the drivers that we're talking about right now, Franco Colapinto, Kimi Antonelli, Oliver Behrman, they're not even like top 4 or 5 this year. Well, Antonelli is just about, right? But the fact that the guy that looks like he might win it is a rookie just tells you how unbelievable that field is. They could have that entire field in Formula One next season, and it will be a great year. You know what I mean? So I think anyone that's been in a seat for a little while, essentially seat warming, Bottas, Joe, I'm looking at you, mates. You're going to be looking over your shoulder. Liam Lawson to Red Bull looks like it's probably a done deal. This was more of a fact checking exercise than a proper audition. I think he was already being lined up for that seat. The Yuki Tsunoda test at the end of the year, Honda are pushing for it. It seems more like lip service than anything else. Franco to V-carb. Yeah, I guess they might push for it, but I think James Vowles has got not too weak a hand, given that Doralton are now pumping more cash into Williams. I think Williams have got the motives and the means to go forwards, and it would be silly, I think, to jump ship.
Josinho, as much as I'd love to indulge you in some Williams chat, I think we'd send our audience to sleep. Baxter, you disagree, sir, with the Colapinto move. Where do you think he's going to end up?
If he's going to end up anywhere, it's going to be at Sauber. And the simple reason is if Liam Lawson is going into Red Bull, we're forgetting one name, Isaac Hadjar. He is very well liked by Red Bull. He's done tests in AlphaTauri machinery last year. He's fighting for the championship in F2. If Red Bull are going to put anyone next to Yuki Tsunoda, top of that list is Isaac Hadjar, not Franco Colapinto. Like, as much as I like Colapinto, I don't see his future being anywhere near a V-carb or a Red Bull. It's Hadjar.
Wow.
They will go for Hadjar.
Isn't the argument, though, that Franco is doing it in F1 right now, whereas Isaac is not doing it in F2 right now?
They rate him that highly that I think they would trust him to get in that car. You know, he did very solid FP1 performances. That's a start.
Did he, Baxty?
No,
did he? I thought he was rubbish.
They didn't like him.
He was rubbish.
In the FP, in the pre-practice sessions, I don't think they liked him.
No, he was rubbish. When did he get involved? When did he get involved? I feel like did he jump in No, it wasn't Monaco. Mate, I remember quite distinctly expecting something from Isaac Hadjar, and then
he did it in Mexico last year, and I think he had a pretty solid run. And he did Abu Dhabi for Red Bull. He may not have been very good then,
but he was in there this year, wasn't he, as well? But wherever he did it this year, the reports back were like, "Oh my god, this dude is like Nick DeVries settings backstage." If I recall correctly, here's again, I'll see you that and I'll raise you this. I'm going to put my neck on the line.
More after Arvin Lindblad than
okay, so Arvin, but Arvin might be a bit premature. Here's what's going to happen. Look, they will Colapinto. I think Christian is already sniffing around Franco, and you know why as well, chaps. Have you seen all this craziness? Franco Colapinto on the grid. He's a good-looking chap. Do you know what I mean? In the same type of bracket as a Charles Leclerc, as an example. B. Like he's already got, so Alex Albon has been, this is like 100 races for Alex Albon, and he's got 2.9 million Instagram followers. Franco Colapinto, couple races, same number of Instagram followers as Alex Albon. This dude is a phenom as far as his marketing potential. So Christian Horner loves himself a bit of that. I feel like Danny Rick has been trading off of that for the last couple of years. And then secondly, Christian Horner, again, truth sayer extraordinaire. Every time they put a microphone in front of his face, it's Colapinto's there. I don't know about Liam, but you can just see how good Colapinto's been. I can't believe it. He's just come out of it. Like he's very, he's been in very explicit, almost like too eager in praising Franco. I think Christian Horner fancies some Colapinto, and plus Checo Perez. I think I'm hearing that Audi need themselves some financial resources, lest they be doomed to repeat the mistakes of Toyota in the most recent past. Who else but for Checo Perez? And that's why they've been so hesitant in re-signing Valtteri Bottas. Nearest makes no difference, same driver as Checo. You'd compare them, argue probably that Bottas is probably a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit better these days in terms of racecraft, but not $20 million better So that's what I think's going to happen, Baxty.
Well, we have to remember when Christian Horner says anything, he's probably working against Helmut Marko as well. Because what I would say is that Colapinto is clearly on the radar of Horner, but I think Marko wants Lawson in the Red Bull and he wants Hadjar in the V Carb. So they are both Marko guys, whereas Perez and Colapinto are both Horner guys, if we look at it that way. So if you look at the internal politicking that's been going on between those two, it could be that there's that going on as well. And then of course, you've got Arvin Lindbergh coming, who's probably going to supersede all four of them anyway. So, I mean, Ari Sauber, don't forget, Bortoletto is also in line for that drive. And,
Mate,
he's rapid.
The drive at Sauber? But wasn't the chat backstage that McLaren didn't want to leave him?
Well, that's the thing, because they might lose Oscar, so they want to keep him free. But it's the same as Colapinto. They need to strike a deal. And we know that Alonso's been in his corner because he's part of Alonso's management group. So
Bartoletto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to get techie, gents. We're living in the rookie era.